this is going to sound stupid, but I don't know. Like, what was the reason for all the fighting? I understand the third fight, but what was the reason for the immediate fighting in the U.S.-Canada game?
I think, after losing so many games to Canada on the international stage, the Americans were tired of hearing about it, and they wanted a physical response. And if you want a physical response, you get Keith Kachuk's kids to do it for you because they are, in his words, lunatics. And I think that was just 9 years of frustration and reading about the Canadian dominancy and Sidney Crosby and the best player in the world, Connor McDavid. And I think there was a little bit of maybe they felt a little disrespected and. I think they wanted an opening statement, and boy, was it an opening statement.
Sometimes you just want to get the crowd going too in an event like that. It happened actually. There was a clip that the Bruins put out last week of Nikita Zadorov. The last time they played the Ottawa Senators, he was trying to get Brady Tkachuk to drop the gloves right off the bat, and he's like, skates over to Tkachuk. He's like, "Hey, you want to get the crowd going? Like, let's do it right now." Sometimes it's just as simple as that.
Saturday night was probably a way to get the crowd. The energy was there, but this was to get it maybe on their side or just kind of take it away from the Canadian side a little bit because they were the aggressors in the fights, the Americans, and I think if you're unbiased, you probably think they went 3-0 in those fights, and that's a way to take the wind out of the Canadian sails and the crowd.
Oh, you think they went 3-0 in that? The United States? Do you think they won the third flight?
JT Miller got his ass handed.
Yeah, he got his ass kicked. Yeah,
that's probably even at best. But I thought the Tkachuk brothers won both their fights.
I think the Tkachuk brothers won both their fights too. But Miller, I thought, got his ass kicked. But he was so much smaller. I mean, what are you going to do?
He was. Yeah, he was giving up some serious weight there.
And then I think the Charlie McAvoy hit got him going even more. Just a few minutes later on McDavid, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And because McDavid is. You watch these guys play, and they're so fast. There's no slow guys on this, but he's just another gear. I mean, he's flying at 120 while everyone else is at 80 to 90, and to go shoulder to chest to him and knock him down the way he did, that sends a message. When you can't match speed for speed, you got to slow him down somehow, and Charlie is certainly a guy that can do that.
Yeah, teach that to the Bruins. I mean, if you can't match him with speed, you got to slow him down somehow. They've yet to figure it out. I'm a little surprised at how much this has captivated people's attention because it's obviously captivated non-traditional hockey fans' attention because the ratings were so good on Saturday night for the U.S.-Canada game. They've announced that they're going to do a World Cup now. Are you at all surprised at how much success this has been? How much of a success this has been?
No, because I think that a lot of people thought that this was going to be like an all-star game atmosphere, and every time we talked to the players in the lead up, McAvoy, Swayman, Marchand, they were adamant that this was not going to be your average all-star game. This was going to be best on best competition, and guys were going to feel the pride of slipping on their country sweaters. So the way they talked it up and the media surrounding it, I'm not too surprised. I think a lot of fans, maybe casual fans flipped it on Saturday night thinking they were going to see, an exhibition type of game and were surprised. So I think that's only can be a good thing for the NHL moving forward because this is what an all-star competition should be. This is what, none of those sham games that the NBA puts on and the NFL puts on. Like this is what you want to see your best players play against the best best opponents and actually mean it and be into it.
How is Marchand? Marchand's been fun during this whole thing. I mean, there's audio of him in the locker room, almost fanboying out at, being on that Canadian team as I know a big dream of his is to be on an Olympic team. What have you gotten out of not just Marchand, but the Bruins players that are involved in this tournament?
Yeah, Marchand's always great with us, and he, he's a guy that gets it. I think, you played that clip of John Cooper coming in, but I talked to Cooper last week, and he just looked at me and said, first he made fun of my Boston accent, but then he said that Marchand is the type of guy that will, if I told him to go lie in traffic for me, he'd do it, and that's just kind of the way he is. And I think, despite the fact that he might not be, one of the top players on this team, he's he's like a heart and soul guy and has embraced that role. And, he's a guy you want on your team all the time. I mean, whether he's playing on the third line or the fourth line, or he plays on the top line for the Bruins, he doesn't care. He just wants to go out there and win. And that's just such an admirable quality. McAvoy's been the same way. He's an alternate captain for this team. He's been front and center. His physical play the other night was awesome. And I think Sway, we haven't really talked to Sway much, but I'm interested to see if Mike Sullivan splits the net tonight between Ottinger and Swayman just to get them in, knowing that they're already in the final. So interested to talk to Mike Sullivan this morning and find out.
All right, yeah, well, but there's some lesser Bruins that are around. They're not playing a lot. What do you think of the Bruins, the other guys, and we people get a chance to see them maybe today?
Yeah, so Lindholm plays for Sweden, and he's kind of taken on the same type of role he's been with the Bruins the last month or so. Third line center, kind of tasked with the role of shutting down the other team's top line, and did a really good job against Canada. I know his offensive stats don't show up that much, but he has a really good 200-foot game, and part of the reason that Sweden was able to get Canada to overtime in the opener on Wednesday was the play of Lindholm and his back checking and his playing his own end. So, he certainly hasn't put up the numbers for the Bruins or for Team Sweden that, maybe we had expected when he signed here, but he certainly fills that 200-foot center role pretty well.
Jim, if it plays out and Canada advances today and into the championship game, what do you expect the atmosphere to be like? What do you expect Canada's response to be in that game as far as how they play and just everything that goes with Thursday night?
Yeah, I would expect a physical response from the Canadians. I don't think we're going to have 3 fights in 9 seconds, but I think they'll be ready to push back. The way the Americans kind of set the tone last week. I think you'll see a more physical game, but it'll be very exciting. I think this is what everyone wants to see. They want to see the U.S. Canada. They want to see a rematch. They probably wanted to see 2 games between those 2 countries even before this tournament started because, hell, it's in North America, right? These are the teams they want to see. So it'll be an electric atmosphere, and I think you'll see a physical response from the Canadians. But, looking at this American team, they've got good size. They're not going to back down.
Do you think we ever see a return to an all-star game, or is this Four Nations going to be so popular that this is the odd-numbered year every 2 years they're going to be doing this?
I hope so. I hope we never see another all-star game again because it's just not hockey, right? It's pond hockey, it's senior league hockey. It's not what you want to see when you see the best players in the world. So I would love to see this type of thing, World Cup, Olympics, and a lot of NHL players were disappointed that there's only 4 nations in the 4 nations, right? So I think maybe a little bit of an expanded version of that, maybe not a full-fledged World Cup, but this is the type of thing that the NHL should be putting on to get more fans. And to Fred's point, like there's so much interest, right? And it's because of this, and it's not because of an All-Star game. So you probably will see another All-Star game because it does make money. But I would much rather see this, and I think most fans would much rather see this type of hockey than anything else.
Well, it makes money, but you've got more games here, right? I mean, you've got a lot more ticket revenue, I would imagine. I mean, just looking at the prices to get into any of these games in Montreal or Boston, you've got, 3 or 4 games up in Montreal. You got 3 games here, so you're 7 instead of 1
and
or
I would
2
think
events.
Other Canadian market teams and U.S. market teams would want these games, right?
Right.
Split them so you'd probably make money that way too.
As long as the NHL is making money and the NHLPA is happy, this type of thing can work. But shutting down the league for 2 weeks is never something that the owners like. That was kind of a major sticking point why they haven't been in the Olympics for so long. But if they can sort that out the way they have for the upcoming games and the upcoming World Cup, I think this it's a no-brainer to put on something like this.
Okay, so the Bruins eventually have to get back to playing hockey, and how many moves do you see happening? What are you hearing about the future of this team this season?
Yeah, I think that they're probably still in a buyer mentality right now, but these first 4 games coming out of the break are going to tell you a lot. Like if they if they show you something, if they show management something, then I think it's in Don Sweeney's nature to be a buyer at the deadline. He likes to add, he likes to trade. If they fall flat coming out of these first 4 games or so, then I think you're probably looking at more of a seller mode than anything, because, and not that they have a ton to deal, but at some point you got to realize that the playoffs might be out of reach because of the logjam in the Eastern Conference. I mean, they're not only are a team so close, there's just so many teams that are bunched up. So you have to get points and jump a bunch of teams. So not an easy task. So I think this first week coming out of the break is going to tell a lot for the fortunes of this club going forward.
Do you think there's any way that they trade Marchand?
I don't. I think you're sending a bad message if you do, especially to the locker room and to the younger guys, that you're trading the heart and soul of this team. So I'd be surprised if they got a bundle for him, then maybe. But you got to remember, he's on an expiring contract, so he's not going to. A player on an expiring contract is not going to bring back a lot anyway. So it's that's a bad PR hit if you're not going to get much and you're parting ways with Brad Marchand.
If you like that clip, check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. For more Bruins analysis and opinion, hit this playlist.